Good morning. I wanted to come to you today and just make beginner's guide or video to working with La Santa Muerte. I know in the past I've talked about working with her different robe colors. There's so many other robe colors that I'm going to eventually get into, but today I just want to cover something pretty basic, which is, a beginner's guide to working with La Santa Muerte because when you first start working with her, she's such a complex spirit to work with that I feel like sometimes we need a little bit of guidance, or we need somebody to give us confirmation that what we're seeing, experiencing is true. And don't mind me, I look a little rough today. But I do really want to touch on that just because I've had a lot of people recently who have been called to work with her. And, you can read books, you can watch YouTube videos, you could talk to other devotees, but you're going to have your own relationship with her. I've done several rituals with her that's kind of strengthened the connection that I have with her. And she's also come to me in dreams that let me know that the relationship was strengthened. I hope that makes sense. Like the bond was made stronger that we have. Because you have to remember there are going to be different ways that you work with Santa Muerte. I'm a devotee, so I do a lot of devotional rituals and relationships, but I also work with her. So you can do both. People don't understand you can do both, right? I know people who devote themselves to her and they also have they go to other people, they go to other people to work with her for them or do readings for them. I've gotten into doing work with her and devoting myself to her, I would go to somebody else who was this person was a Palero who also worked with Mitecuaticao and Santa Muerte, which is more of her raw form, right? That form is a little bit more intense. And from what I do know, there are times where certain spirits or certain raw energies that are more ancient. I like to say these are older energies, right? They require blood or animal sacrifice. It's the same with Palo Mayombe. And in voodoo, a lot of people don't realize when you work with older magic or older forms of magic, more raw forms of magic, something that comes from the earth, you will find that a lot of those practices do require more of, blood magic involved in it. Does that mean that you have to do this when working with Santa Muerte? No, because Santa Muerte now is a Catholic, right? More of a Catholic santo or saint or spirit that you can petition and work with, or just devote yourself to. And like I mentioned before I got comfortable with working with her, with actually asking stuff, I wanted to build a relationship before I got into that. So it took me a little bit of time to get there. So I know some people who do, just they love her so much that they just do offerings and devotional things and ask for protection, stuff like that. But then there's other people who do actual work, petition work. I do a lot of justice work. So whenever I have somebody who's telling me they have a court case, somebody who's telling me they're in a domestic violence relationship, anybody who's telling me something, I am also just very much a bruja. I'm very much a ritual person. I love to do rituals. I love to do work. I love to do cleansings. I love herbs. I love camps. I'm very much into being a ritual work kind of person anyway. So I knew that I would start working with her. But just because you devote yourself to her does not mean that you have to work with her. You can still honor her, right? And devote yourself to her and ask her for protection, ask her for certain things, and not use her for other things. Because a lot of people don't realize she's a very, not only resourceful energy, but she's also very much an energy that she kind of do what she wants. And what I mean by that is she's not all loving and good. I don't think people realize that she's very much a balanced energy, but she can go very hard. And I've known her to do that in certain rituals that I've done for other people. when I was doing like justice magic, or if I was telling them how to do something in particular, if they were already a devotee, in order for them to get some kind of required results. Because also remember, there are rituals you can do for love, and I always say love magic is just one of those things, once you get into that kind of aspect or realm of doing magic, just make sure you know what you're doing, and make sure you know what you're signing up for when you do it. Because 9 times out of 10, if you don't know what you're doing when it comes to love magic, it'll backfire. But Santa Muerte, in my opinion, and I'm only saying that as somebody who has worked with her, because somebody else might have a different experience, she's very much I'm going to do what I want kind of spirit. Or sometimes she'll give you what you're asking for, and then that's when you realize, like, oh, this is not what I wanted. So I'm only saying that just to kind of keep in mind, right, before you get into it. What kind of relationship are you building with this spirit? Is it just solely and purely devotional? I know so many people who do that. It's almost like, the same with the Catholic saints. I've known people to have altars to like La Virgen de Guadalupe or Altagracia. When you have just some kind of altar to these spirits, you can do that. You could just have an altar and devote yourself to her. But if you are, more of a bruja and you like to do actual work, hey, you can work with her as well. But I will tell you, and I say this in a lot of my videos when I talk about spirits, just make sure you know that if you're petitioning, you're devoting yourself to spirits, you're ultimately having a goal of building a relationship with these spirits. You don't want to invoke or ask a spirit for something and it's just transactional, right? You see a lot of transactional relationships in more of demonic magic. So if you're doing more just demonic magic, people who typically do demonic magic, you probably just have like a lot of clients, you do a lot of work, so you do a lot of different things. So I will say from experience, when you do more of demonic magic, those kind of spirits, some of them, right, are more likely to be willing to be petitioned because they're just like, whatever. Same with Kindoki, right? You can hire a spirit to do the work for you. Kindoki is a spirit. It's a spirit magic, but it's a spirit for hire. So it's, you work with muertos, you work with graveyard spirits. Working with graveyard spirits are spirits for hire. They're very transactional. So they just want you to feed them, give them something. They just want something, and they'll do whatever you're asking. Working with a spirit, even in voodoo, which I don't know why people go and petition certain spirits. Even in Palo, you have, your Palo spirits, the Orishas. You can't just go around petitioning spirits, and asking them for stuff and expecting them to just deliver. There has to be some kind of relationship. And even with the Loa or Palo spirits, or even with like the Orisha, you have to know what spirits are walking with you in order for you to utilize the energy or, petition those spirits. And many of those practices, you also have to receive the spirits, but there are also secret societies or societies that you're initiated into, or branches, right, that you're initiated into, that you're able to receive the spirits to work with them. So those are a little bit more of complex spirits. I will say from experience with the Loa, if the Loa walk with you, they will definitely make themselves known. And that's what happened to me. I did not go petitioning them. None of the spirits that I work with have I ever went and knocked on their door and petitioned them. Even with La Santa Muerte, I never knocked on their door, petitioned them, asked them for help. They came to me, and I had to learn how to work with those energies, and do what was needed to be able to work with those energies, if that makes sense. But what I will say, okay, for certain is with La Santa Muerte, right? Because I don't want to I don't want to, digress from where I'm getting at. But what I'm trying to say is with La Santa Muerte, in order for you to have a relationship with her, you have to, start from somewhere. I will say there are instances where I've known that she will do something for you on your behalf, but it's almost like she knows that you're her child, so she's going to have the expectation that you serve her. So I've definitely known her, and that's the thing. I've known that with the Loa too, right? where they were petitioned for something, for some kind of working or for some kind of something. And with Santa Muerte, when you petition her or ask her to do something, 9 times out of 10, she's very resourceful. She's going to figure out how to do it for you or how to guide you to whatever it is that you need. So it's, I've known her to do some really, crazy stuff. I remember I had a friend who's devotee and did work, and they petitioned her for, they were on a, I'm trying to remember, they like fill out an application for something. I think it was, they're trying to like get back payment for something, and it was taking forever. Like, it was initially taking forever, and I was like, just, Santa Muerte, like, ask her to, help you with that. And they were able to push the application through. Santa Muerte pushed the application through and was able to help this person get that back pay. And I'm talking about, this is from years ago, and they were working on this petition or this application for months. They were just waiting forever. And they said, normally, it doesn't go that fast. Normally it takes, it's very slow, like, application or processing time. But she was able to push it through so they can get the money to pay something else off. It was just like, it was one of those things where it was like, oh, if I don't get enough money, then this is going to happen. It was like that. So what I will say is, she's very resourceful. She's very helpful. But she also will expect, like, if I'm helping you and you're coming to me for certain things, like, I'm going to need you to devote yourself to me. I'm going to need you to do something. And I can only say that from experience, because even when I've asked for stuff, she's definitely come to me in dreams or whatever the case is. So in a way, it only feels right. If you're asking somebody for something all the time and they're always like delivering or helping you find a way, like, why wouldn't you want to, be a devotee of that spirit? But there are certain spirits, like I said, like Santa Muerte, where you can't just go petition and ask for something and expect her to deliver and then not expect her to want something back. She is, I don't want to say transactional, but she is one of those spirits where, like, you just don't go asking for stuff. She's just more of a intense, heavier energy from what I've experienced. And maybe there are certain robe colors or aspects of her that are not more intense, but from me, personal experience, the ones that I have, connected with were heavy, very heavy. I'm talking about the energy took up a whole room. I've talked in my previous video about the first robe color that came to me, which was La Roja, and that's the red aspect. She's very, very intense. I've heard people say, I don't know how true this is, correct me or not, but I've heard people say that the red and the black are very closest to Mitecualtical's energy. And I will say that's a very intense energy. But I remember making a 5 foot, it's about maybe a 3-4 foot tall statue, and hand painted it, and I painted the face, and I put flowers and butterflies all over it, and I made it for La Santa Muerte. I made it for her altar because I had all these little statues for her, and I did the red one for her. And the energy filled up the room. It was so, I can't even explain how intense it was after I put it on the altar for her, or put it near her altar. It was intense. It took up the whole room. Like, it just felt, I don't know how to even explain it. It just felt like something so ginormous was in the room, and the whole altar area was just radiating, like, through the whole room. And I'm talking about, there's a very big room it was in. So she's a very intense energy. I will say that. She's not kind of like a beginner's spirit, that you would want to work with if you're doing a lot of spirit work. If you are working like with a beginner coat, it is, I would say, the white coat. Everyone says that La Niña Blanca is the beginner's coat, but I would say for me, personally, if whatever color robe you're dreaming about is coming to you, I would say just work with that one, because that's more than likely the one that is coming to you. Now, I will tell you, La Negra is very intense, but I know a devotee who is only the age of 15, and the first robe to come to them was La Negra. So they started off with that robe. So it really is, how comfortable you feel, what robe color is coming to you, and the color is going to matter what is going on in your life. So I would say, if you want to play it safe, you can definitely do La Blanca. She's a very, very sweet, soft, loving mother, like motherly energy. But if you are dreaming about a different robe color, I would say you can also start with that too, and just decide how you want to build a relationship. But you should always start from a devotional relationship, And I'm talking about even simple things is giving her incense, giving her water, praying to her. She loves like chisme. She loves gossip. So we watch like Love Island together, or we like watch TV together. I've known her to like soap operas. So she'll watch TV with you. And that's what I'm talking about. Very basic relationship. Sometimes when I cook breakfast, I'll cook breakfast for her too and put it at the table, put her statue at the table and light a cigarette for her to smoke while I'm eating breakfast with her. And that's what I'm saying, devotional, right? Not everything is going to be magic. We're doing this, we're doing that. Even though I like to use her for magic things because she's very powerful, especially if I'm using her for, she loves working, like me doing work for other people. So like I had a situation where somebody, their family member has to go to court for something, and like this other person was like harassing them. So I'm tearing this person up. Like we going in, we not letting nobody get away with anything. And Santa Muerte was so happy to like do that. It was just like, she was like rubbing her little, bony fingers together, like to do something. But it took me a while to get there. And I think that's something that people aren't transparent about with working with any spirits. I don't think people really tell you that sometimes it takes you a while to get to a certain place with working with the spirit. It's not overnight, and there you might be the kind of person where the spirits is so happy that you're around that they're willing to do things. Sure, they're willing to do things right off the bat. Sure, I've had that happen before, but then there was also the expectation that now you work with me, now I'm your main spirit, now you're going to do A, B, and C for me because we're building this relationship. But 9 times out of 10, you're going to have to build some kind of relationship or connection with them, right? And I keep saying a relationship because it is a relationship. When people, and I've heard when people say, oh, like you work with a spirit, they're not your colleague. There are some people who we really do work with the spirit. Like we do work with the spirit. We invoke them. We do work with them. Because at the end of the day, it is a relationship that you have to build with them. Just like you build a relationship with your employer or whatever the case is, you have to build a relationship with the spirit if you want them to do some kind of work for you. Even if you're doing, graveyard spirit work, you're employing that spirit, you're hiring the spirit, whatever the word is, right? Personally, it's trapping the spirit. But you have to build a trusting relationship to want to work with that kind of spirit, because honestly, if that spirit is unhappy, they can do whatever they want, right? They can ruin your life if you don't know what you're doing. They can mount you, drain your finances, drain your energy. They can attack you in your sleep. So you have to really build a relationship with whatever kind of spirit it is. I will say La Santa Muerte is very patient. She's very tolerant. So even if you like forget to do something or whatever the case is, she'll remind you. But she also doesn't play that. So you can't just go around invoking her, asking her for stuff, and then not follow through with that. So I'll keep this, I went on a whole tangent, but I'm going to keep this a little bit simple to let you know what you can do to at least build a devotional relationship. Because we talk so much about food offerings, cigarette, the alcohol she likes. Personally, everyone says tequila, but for me, I could put tequila out and she'll sip it. I put Everclear out and it is gone. I'm talking about dry. There's times where I'll put tequila out and she'll start to grow mold in it, and I'm like, oh, she didn't like it. But I put Everclear out and that thing is dry as a bone. I'm talking about dry as a bone. There's nothing inside of her little shot glass. So we talk so much about food offerings, candle and all the other stuff, but there are other very basic stuff that you can do. And I always say, as a beginner, if you're getting into this, start it off very basic. And you can do just devotional stuff. You don't have to like immediately start working with her or petitioning her for stuff or asking her for certain things if you don't feel too comfortable as yet. Because I do know a lot of people are very hesitant, especially when you say, oh, you're devoting yourself to death. It's almost like that, excuse me, what? Like kind of reaction that I get whenever I let somebody know, oh, like La Santa Muerte is coming around you. Or somebody will tell me they had a dream and I'm like, okay, yeah, I think you should start getting ready to set up an altar and, devote yourself to the spirit, work with the spirit, whatever the case is, whatever relationship you build, right? But there has to be some kind of like foundation when you start doing that kind of work, which is building a basic relationship. Understanding that sometimes you're not going to get everything that you ask for from the spirit. Sometimes it's not going to be in a form that you like you expected. Like, And that's what I'm going to say. Sometimes you might expect something or you need something, and they're going to deliver it in another way. You just have to be very patient, and you have to have a very strong relationship with the spirit. Even when you communicate with them, talking out loud to them is perfect. They can hear you. And I'm going to tell you, spirits can hear you at all times. Your thoughts, your verbal, like the things that you say are not safe, right? At least for me, my altars are very active. When I say something, the spirits will either come to me and answer me in a dream, even if I'm not talking directly towards them, or it'll come up in a reading, it'll come up in something. I remember one time I was joking with someone, and it was a joke. I was joking with someone about something, and we share a similar spirit in our court, and they got a reading, and what I had said had came out in the reading. So I was just like, okay, like these spirits they're really, really listening. So just be very careful, like with what you say. There was times where I was going through like difficult, situations in my life and hardship. And, when the spirits came out, they were like, I really don't like when you talk about yourself like that and when you say certain things. So just, be careful when you're going and you're venting to La Santa Muerte. These spirits is, she's going to hear it. She hears everything. She even knows your thoughts, right? So I'm just saying, be very careful when it comes to what you say. But she loves when you spend time with her. And like I mentioned before, even if you're just setting out an extra plate and putting some food on it and setting her at the table, you can do that. Taking her with you to, sit down in the living room and watching TV, you can do that. I don't care. I'm going to stand on what I say. Because I've known there's been devotees who like bully other people because they've been doing this for such a long time, right? There's a few reputable, that when I first started out, I went to them because it seemed like they have such a loving relationship. I think her name is Janelle Longoria. And then I always talk about Mysterious Leroy. I went to them and they were very honest in the way that they, devote themselves to La Santa Muerte. So I would say if you want to look at other videos, I always talk about those two. They were the first two that I started to, watch when I started to get into it, because I was dreaming about her years before I even got into doing any kind of work or devoting myself to her. So I always just say, do some research before. Understand that once you start, that's just kind of it. You just can't decide one day oh, I don't want to work with her anymore, or oh, she didn't give me what I want, so now I'm not going to work with her. And you'll be surprised how many people, especially I've seen it in voodoo, where the Loa doesn't give them what they want, and guess what? They stop, or they cease the relationship, or they no longer want to work with them, or whatever the case is, devote themselves, or no longer want to do anything with them because they don't get what they want. I've seen that with La Santa Muerte. I've seen that with so many spirits, where people will just decide that, oh, the spirit didn't give me what I want, so I'm not going to work with them anymore. So, understand that this is for life. I say this all the time, even with being a spiritualist. The minute that you hop onto this path and this journey, everyone thinks this is just beautiful love and light, and it's not. It's not at all. It is pretty much very difficult, and 9 times out of 10 it is very traumatic with the stuff that you experience. But when you start building these relationships with the spirits, then you start to understand, I guess, your purpose on your path and everything. But La Santa Muerte is very, very beautiful spirit to work with. But I always say in the beginning, just keep it very basic. Even if you have a small altar, I always say altars should not be hidden or in a closet, unless you have to, unless you're in a situation where somebody could be abusive, somebody could knock down your altars or destroy your altars, then you keep it somewhere hidden, of course, obviously. But initially starting out, no. Don't put the altar inside of the closet. Mine's, because I don't have anybody who comes through my home. The only people who come are people who are sick to get a cleansing or something done. So they already know what time I'm on. I have 1,000 altars when you come inside this house, so you already know when you're walking in pretty much what it is that I do, or what I got going on in here. But I have a huge altar to her in my living room, and it's out in the open. She loves it. She's right by the TV. She likes watching TV. Despite what people think, she has very human qualities. I will say, personally, to me, very human-like qualities. It's the same with the Loa. I've known people to say, "Oh, they're just like energies," and I'm like, they are. But I just personally, my experience, I've experienced some human-like things with them that I was just like, this is kind of crazy. Same with La Santa Muerte. Very human-like things that I've experienced with her. She, not to just try to diminish her as who she is as a spirit, but she has a personality, and I think that's what I'm trying to say. She has a personality. I've worked with ascended masters who are very autonomous in their energy. What I can say is like Archangel Michael, very autonomous in the energy. I invoke you, I petition you, and that's kind of it with the relationship. Like, all right, I'm here to do what I need to do. You ask for protection, you ask for this, I got you. Where La Santa Muerte, she kind of likes jokes, and she likes you to spend time with her, and she likes her cigarettes, and she likes her alcohol and stuff like that. So it's a little bit different. There are personalities when it comes to that. La Roja and me did not get along at first. I always say that. Sometimes with certain spirits and certain energies, including La Santa Muerte, you might not have a relationship off bat where you're like, oh, this is great. Like, everything is great, everything. No, because there's plenty of spirits that I have been working with for years where we didn't have the best relationship in the beginning. But I found out that these spirits walk with me. So what that means when a spirit walks with you, that means that y'all pretty much like stuck together. So they walk with you, they're not going anywhere, right? You just have to learn how to embrace and work with these energies. I'm a very free and unruly person, so I kind of like to do what I like to do. I don't really like taking orders from nobody else, which is why I end up being like a standalone practitioner, even though I have worked with elders, under elders, and I've learned a lot of things. I just knew that I couldn't be in servitude of somebody else because I like to do what I like to do. And those spirits are very much like that. La Santa Muerte is very much like that. If she's telling you to do something, she is telling you to do something. So do what she is telling you to do. Just listen to her. But it was a very trying relationship at first because I kind of like to do things on my own. I kind of like to do things a certain way, but she's very much like stand on business, and I'm like that. And it just takes a little while for you to get used to those energies. And I'll be honest, a lot of people just make it seem like it's just roses and petals and great, and it's not. Sometimes it takes a little getting used to of those energies. Sometimes the energies are very powerful too and very strong. For me, that was another thing. I'm very energy sensitive, so sometimes it took me a little bit of time to be able to get used to handling those energies. I have another spirit in my court, very, very difficult energy to work with because it's not a tameable energy. So I had to learn to work with the energy that was not tameable. Same with La Roja. You have to work with energy that is not tameable, something that will fill the whole room up. You just got to get used to that kind of stuff. So I will say it's okay for you to take your time. I don't know why we are living in this society where everybody is rushing everything. Because before apprenticeships and learning magic, it used to take decades before somebody was ready to even do anything. Now I feel like in the day and age of social media, all we're seeing is everybody just, willing to throw bones and cast spells and do all this stuff. And there's no experience, there's no studying, there's no nothing behind that. It's just kind of like going into the spirit world and just freeballing everything. But it's okay for you to take your time. It's okay for you to not initially feel like 100% comfortable in your devotional relationship with La Santa Muerte or even doing some kind of ritual or spell work. It is going to take time. It is going to take practice, and it's going to take understanding and building a relationship with that spirit. And you can just build it by spending time with her, by talking to her, by even asking her if there's something that you can do. And sometimes no answer doesn't mean that she's ignoring you. Sometimes no answer means like, I don't need anything. Just use your intuition. Make sure you're always clean when you're interacting and you're doing spirit work. I always emphasize on spiritual hygiene. But I will tell you that it is going to take a little bit of time for you to build a relationship. So don't feel bad if right off the bat you don't feel like you're connection or relationship is strong, sometimes they will test you. And I think that's another human aspect that people don't talk about, or human like quality that these spirits may have, is that sometimes they'll test you. Sometimes they'll see how bad you really want something, or if you're just going to give up when you don't get the response or the answer that you want. It just takes a little bit more time. So understand that you're building like a trusting relationship with somebody or something that's going to be around you for a lifetime and eons after that. So it's just not, I think that's one thing, is people don't realize that things just don't come overnight. It will take time for you to build a relationship with that spirit. Sometimes it might seem like that spirit's not listening, or they're not answering maybe something that you asked for. And sometimes that's just what it is. Maybe they're just being silent, they're being quiet, they're testing you. If you're asking for 5, 6, 7, 8 signs and they've already given you like 3, it's just like, come on. At some point they're gonna get quiet. At some point, you're going to have to trust your intuition. And at some point, you got to realize that the spirit doesn't hate you just because it's not answering you. Sometimes they want you to just, use your own brain and just relax and chill sometimes, or just build a stronger connection and relationship with them so that you're able to identify the signs or when they're trying to communicate with you. And like I mentioned, she's always listening. So even if you say something out loud and she doesn't like it, she will say it, because she's definitely said that to me before too. Before I started even getting into it, she like analyzed everything I had going on, and she said A, B, and C, and she was just very blunt and direct about it. And I'm like, okay, cool. All right, cool. And you just got to kind of listen and take it in. But it doesn't mean just because you're not getting some kind of answer or response from her quickly, it might just take a little bit more time. And like I said, building that relationship with her is going to make you feel a little bit more comfortable and stable. But having a devotional relationship with her first before you actually start doing some kind of spell working or rituals with her, blood sacrifices or blood rituals with her, anything that's intense like that, you want to build a devotional relationship first. And I will say that, is just a lot of patience, time, and spending time with her. I'm not gonna lie, there are some times that even as a devotee or somebody who does spell workings with her, I can go a few days without doing like a prayer or something like that, and it's terrible. I know that's terrible, but I'll still do other things in the meantime. I'm still changing her water, I'm still talking to her, and I'll tell her like I'm sorry. And that's only because I do so much, and I know she sees that I do so much when it comes to spell workings and how many other spirits that I tend to work to and do work with them for other people, that she just kind of like, it's like, I'm a chill, I'm a fall back, and she'll just take her offerings or whatever the case is, and she's fine with that. But when I need to go to her altar, she will very much make her presence known, like, hey, you need to be here, or like pop up in my dreams or something. So like I said, it took me years to get to having a pretty decent and good foundation with her. It took me a very long time. So don't expect things to like unfold or happen, or everything's going to happen overnight. It's okay to be patient. It's okay to just take a little bit of time when working with her. And if you have like questions, you can always leave it down below. I'm always answering and responding, and I always feel like my purpose here is to lead others on their spiritual journey. And if there's anything that I can answer or touch base on to make you feel a little bit more comfortable in your work, or feel comfortable in your devotional life that you have with Santa Muerte, or relationship that you have with La Santa Muerte, you can leave that information. I do have a Patreon. My Patreon is very informative. It's going to be in the description box below, but I do a lot of Q&As. I do healing sessions for free. I like to touch base on a lot of different things, a lot of different practices, and working with different spirits. I also hold just like a lot of open space for the community, so that if you have questions and you feel comfortable, or even if you don't feel comfortable leaving them in public forum or public space, you can also reach out to me on Patreon. So I leave that information there so that you understand that you have some kind of guide, resource, tools, because this is not an easy journey when you're working with spirits, when you're devoting yourself to spirits, especially death, because a lot of people have so many negative things to say about that. And your relationship with death is going to be different from everyone else. I know my relationship is completely different. Like I mentioned, there's people who would say like, I can't go a day without doing something. I could go a few days before she comes to me and she's like, excuse me, like, man, what are you doing? I never try to let, things mold over, especially not her coffee or water. But I will tell you, I'll put tequila down for 2 days and I'll go over there because she wants the Everclear and it'll be mold in there. And I'm like, all right, I'll get you the Everclear. So it's just really one of those things where you have to gauge out your relationship with that spirit, because I can sit here and tell you A, B, and C, and you might be like, yeah, that's how it was for me. But then you might be one of those people who are like, oh, it was a little bit different for me. But I just want to be some kind of guide or tool or resource. If there's something that you need or have questions about, let me know. But yeah, something told me to just make this video today, just kind of touch base a little bit on La Santa Muerte, and just talk about her and the devotional aspect, and just learning to pace yourself during this journey when you're doing spirit work, when you're doing anything, because there's really nothing to rush for. It's just going to take a little bit of time for you to get exactly to where you want to be, or where you need to be, and that's it. But with that being said, I really appreciate you for tuning in, for stopping in. Like I mentioned, all my information is in the description box below if you want to just speak with me or contact me. But you guys have a great day today. You take care.